What's up, you guys? Welcome to the next episode of Unconventional. I'm your host, Desiree Wadaker, professional Muay Thai fighter, entrepreneur, mom, all things tough. And today we have a special guest, not only an amazing human being, but a good friend of mine, Dawn Kelley, who is a RDN and performance dietitian. And Dawn, I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for joining the show.
Thanks, Des. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen you, but guys, Dawn is amazing. She's pretty much at the top of the top in terms of being a nutritionist, a dietitian, specifically in performance dietitian, right? Which is a really unique space. And she has worked at the very, very top at the UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas. She has probably seen your favorite fighters go through their weight cuts, go through their training, and she has a very unique approach to business and the fight life. So today we are going to talk about what it takes to be at the top. I mean, girl, you've been at like the Google of the fight scene. So I guess all of our listeners first want to know, because these are like pieces of the puzzle that people don't see, that put on a huge production. And you've been like right in the middle of that. What does that feel like to work somewhere like that?
Uh, it's surreal, a dream come true. You know, I left Florida in 2020 to pursue dietetics and becoming a registered dietitian, with the main goal to help fighters. At the time, I was training myself, and I had teammates who I had been guinea pigging on and helping them run their weight cuts. Because after watching them, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this, guys. So, as I'm sure you know, there's plenty of tactics out there. Some of them are good, some are not so great. So I like left Florida with this dream that I was going to work, with fighters, and that hopefully with UFC fighters someday. And I just assumed it would be more of like a private practice situation. I never in a million years expected the UFC to reach out and offer me a job right before I finished my education. So for me to get that offer straight out of school and that be essentially my first job as a dietitian, oh my gosh, it was surreal. I went from maybe running 1, 2 weight cuts a month, if that, for some amateurs, and a couple pros here and there that were friends of mine, to running 20 to 30 weight cuts per week with the UFC. There's been times where I'm talking to, athletes, and they're struggling to trust the process. And I was like, hey, just to put it in perspective, numbers wise, like I've run more weight cuts in 1 month than you'll probably do in your whole life. So let's work together here. Like maybe a little trust.
Yeah. Yeah. So for our audience that doesn't know, because obviously we have like women that have no idea what the fight world is about, or even know what a weight cut, like, can you explain in simple terms, like what is a weight cut, and why, like, do people go through this? Like, like a little bit about the process and like what it can do to your body from like a professional.
For sure. So the term actually weight cut is a little taboo in like a public sense as far as like verbiage and what we say, but obviously as fighters, that's just the term we use. So for somebody who's listening to this who's not really familiar, I would say that fighting, combat sports in general, whether it's MMA or jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, wrestling, they are divided into weight classes. So at the highest level, where UFC, MMA, we have to maintain some kind of a competitive edge. And a lot of these fighters will lose massive amounts of weight pretty rapidly, especially in the 4 to 5 days leading up to their weigh-ins, in an attempt to gain an advantage, right? So for example, if they weigh in at 170 pounds for the welterweight division on a Friday, by the time they fight on Saturday, they could be weighing 190, 192 within that 24 hours after their weigh-in. So it's almost like the competition before the competition, right? It's the fight before the fight. How well can you lose the weight, and then how well can you recover after and still perform the next day? So that's where, working with a registered dietitian or a professional really comes into play, because for lack of a better term, I mean, you can really mess yourself up. You can really mess yourself up if you don't know what you're doing. So Yeah, that's essentially what we do at this level and even in the amateur level is helping fighters throughout their fight camp, which is like 6 to 8 weeks before their fight. They enter this phase where their training ramps up and then they have to start bringing their weight down, hopefully sustainably, not through starving themselves, and then get them between 8 and 10% above their weight division at the start of their fight week. So that Monday, Tuesday, we want you at about, anywhere from, I'd say actually 7% to 10%, given, male or female. And then we will lose that 7 to 10% acutely, like quickly between those 4 days leading up until weigh-ins.
Yeah, that guys is crazy because I have seen it. Dawn has actually helped facilitate a weight cut for my boyfriend who fights in the UFC, and I have seen firsthand. So like this is not something that you would go through like as a normal person to lose a mass amount of weight, but this is a process that Dawn has gotten down to the T, which is losing a large amount of weight in the safest and healthiest way possible for your body, and then recovering in the safest, healthiest way for your body, right? And it is super, super important. So I know like in our coaching program, a lot of women are wanting to lose weight, right? And sometimes that looks like 5 pounds and sometimes that looks like 20 pounds, which may be a longer goal. So definitely wouldn't suggest doing a weight cut. But if you are doing something or you have an event like a wedding, like I feel like weddings are super popular when I talk to people, they're getting married, they've got this weight that they're trying to get off. And so some people will kill themselves. I've heard it a million times, women killing themselves to fit in a wedding dress, right? And they're not doing it in the healthiest way. So ladies, if you're getting married and you're trying to lose weight, hit up your girl Dawn and she's gonna safely help you get into that wedding dress.
I got you. And sustainably, maybe we'll still look good for the honeymoon too.
Yeah, you need good pictures, things like that. That's super important, aesthetic. And that's the other thing too. I always talk about, like, I have some bodybuilder friends and it's interesting because like they go through weight cuts too, but in a different way, because I always say, hey, like you guys have to look good. We don't have to really fucking look good. We just have to make weight on the scale, right? So I'm not looking at how like my aesthetics are and how big my shoulders are versus like, am I gonna be able to fight my opponent the next day? So for some people, it can be like a grueling experience to go through a weight cut, and it's very important to know how to do that properly. I think even more importantly, not just losing the weight, but like the recovery, right? How underrated is the recovery of that?
Very much so. So I've had very specific situations where, with UFC fighters and non, where they will work with me for the actual weight cut and then they weigh in and it's like once they make it to the scale, they think that's it. And then I don't hear from them. And I'm trying to give them little suggestions here and there, like, please stay away from fat and fiber for the next 24 hours because these things slow down your digestion, like little things like that. I mean, they aren't little things; they're pretty big things. But they just kind of think making the weight, that was it, that's the goal. Now I'm good. I can eat everything in sight or drink everything in sight, and that's the goal, is just to eat and drink as much as humanly possible before the next day. And if you don't know what to eat and at what time to eat it, and how much fluid to take in and how much salt to take in, one or two things are going to happen. Either one, you're going to overdo it and the next day wake up feeling extremely sluggish. Maybe you're retaining too much water and you're bloated and you're puffy. Or two, you're going to eat things that are going to piss off your stomach. And now we've got horrific diarrhea and it's fight day.
I was just going to say you're blowing out your butthole.
Literally peeing out the butt. That's the one that I hear the most. It's like, sorry, it's graphic, but it's true, man. It's true. They think like, oh, as long as I make weight, I'm good. What they don't take into consideration is that how did we just make weight? A lot of times we're sitting in a sauna Thursday night, Friday morning for hours, and even the most efficient and well-planned weight cuts, like in timing in the sauna, even the most efficient ones, like there's a chance that with no water going into your body, you're already dehydrated. Now you want to add a high heat to the situation. Your insides are getting a little cooked. So you go to start eating and drinking right after weigh-ins when your insides literally just got cooked and they're like, no, sir, no, ma'am. And it's either coming up or it's going right out. So
Yeah.
again, yeah, after weigh-ins and the recovery process, that's a lot of times that's where people really mess up is that they don't know that this is a science at the end of the day. Registered dietitians, we've taken a lot of classes in chemistry and biochemistry and metabolic chemistry. Like we need to understand how the body works, what it likes, what it doesn't, because of those little nuances that most people don't know. And why would you?
Yeah. 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 Like there's these crazy weight loss. I feel like, first of all, there's like these crazy weight loss processes I've heard women go through. Like there's also like other pills and stuff. Like, I don't know, is Ozempic one of those? I don't know, but
The
there's some,
injections, the semaglutide. Yeah, it's like the
there's
fad diets, right?
Yeah. And like, guys, please do not try these diets until you have talked to a professional like Dawn, because especially for women, because our metabolism, our hormones, all these things can change. Like, girl, I just found out I had a thyroid issue, which I didn't know existed. So many women have thyroid issues, which I had no idea. But I
Yes.
didn't
A lot of
know that you
fighters, a lot of female fighters get thyroid issues.
Really? Yeah. I didn't know. And they're like, oh, yeah, you can't reverse this. And I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean? And they're like, well, we can help, like, increase it, prevent it from going further down the shitter. But this is something that you can't reverse. So, like, there's stuff that can happen to your body you can't reverse, right, Dawn? Like,
Yes. Yes, you can definitely do irreversible damage. 100%. And I see it
yeah,
all the
that,
time. Like, for example, like keto diet, that's one where a lot of people jumped on that bandwagon because they saw their friends losing weight and it's like a quick, immediate weight loss. However, the repercussions of that can be very severe. And it's like I still find myself educating people to this day. If I get the opportunity, I'm like, hey, this is what happens when you decide that you're just going to have that one piece of cake that one day. And, the long term negative effects it's going to have on your heart down the road. So, yes, correct. Please be careful with fad diets. If it seems too good to be true, there is a good chance that it is.
Yeah, that is absolutely crazy. Yeah, I thank God I have pretty much when I do my weight cuts, I like diet pretty much down to like 2 to 3 pounds, and I have never cut more than 4 pounds. Like I'm very like disciplined. I have worked with a nutritionist over the years. I wish I would work with you, Don. But yeah, like it has been an interesting process to go through that in a healthy way because I saw a lot of females fighters in my gym, like as I started to like get into the sport, do things in really unhealthy ways, and then they would like blow up afterwards. After the stuff stopped, like they would just blow up. Their hormones were so shot that like I don't know if their bodies just were like, ah, fuck it, I'm not going to metabolize food as quick or whatever. But it's like a shocking system, right?
So a few different things happen. And it's more along the lines of starvation. I think that's where a lot of women and even men tend to gravitate towards like, oh, if I eat less, I will be thinner. And I think that that's a really common misconception. And what ends up happening is we got to think like our bodies are still programmed as if we're living in caves. Okay. Let's go back to the cave days. We, hunt in the summertime and it's warm out, but in the winter, we might go long periods of time without food, correct? So when we do have an influx of food, your body is able to put on body fat so that when we don't have food, we have a way to survive in the winter. Like your body's able to break down the body fat that you have stored and feed itself. It's considered energy. It's like holding on to some energy when you don't eat. Now, obviously, we don't have that issue today, right? We have refrigerators, we have 24-hour grocery stores, we got DoorDash, we have food available to us all the time, any time of day. Your body doesn't recognize that. So what ends up happening when we decide to diet really hard and we're starving ourselves and we are eating below what our needs are. And what I mean by that is we need carbohydrates, we need proteins, we need fats, we need these micronutrients that we find in fruits and vegetables. So we need a nice little balance, right? And if we are deprived of any one of those things or all of those things, your body goes into a state of starvation. So your body recognizes over time, like, oh, this bitch isn't eating. happening. Like, we are gonna die. So it slows your metabolism down, okay? Like, really, that's what's happening. It's like, whoa, okay, we're not eating. So we need to slow everything down. All of your processes start to slow down. Your cognitive function, your sex drive, your hormones to produce eggs and reproduce. Because think about it, your body's main function is to keep you alive. So let's divert any and all resources towards keeping your brain going, your heart, and your lungs. If we can keep those three things going, we can go for a long time. What we don't need to
Right.
do is reproduce if we don't have food. What we don't need to do is be able to think, because that's like a secondary thing. So it will shut down these processes, slow down your metabolism, and now you're in a state of a very low metabolism. And your resting metabolism is basically how many calories do you burn at rest. Now, what happens is after we've gone through fight camp and we just got done starving ourselves, or we're getting ready for a wedding and we just starved ourselves for weeks leading up to this wedding. And then what happens? We go to the
The sex
wedding.
is terrible. The sex is terrible on the honeymoon.
That too. We can't get pregnant. We're not getting our period. Our hair's falling out. Our skin looks bad. All the signs of like a nutritional deficiency. But now we go to the wedding and we're at the reception and there's like food and you're like, well, I fit into the dress, gold made, and you just start eating and you start drinking alcohol. And then it's the honeymoon and you're on vacation and you're eating and eating and eating and eating. Your body goes, oh shit, we've got all these extra calories now. Let's store this for a rainy day in case this bitch starves us again.
Oh,
So your
got
body
it.
rapidly starts putting on fat because it's like, yo, she might starve us again. We might need this again. So that's how why we blow up. That's why it seems like we put it on so fast. It's your body's oh shit mechanism. It's like, you know what? We're gonna save this for when you stop eating again. And that's what
Yeah.
happens. So it's like when you've been in a really strict low calorie deficit, it's so important to ease your way back in. Ease your
Mm,
way back in, like increase your calories a little bit, little bits at a time. So if you've been eating 1,200 calories a day, go up to 1,400, chill there for a week or two, then go up to
yeah.
1,600, chill there for a week or two. If you increase your exercise, cool, eat a little bit more. But it's this gradual increase that will actually rehab your metabolism over time. And in order to
Yeah.
rehab the metabolism, it does take time. It could take 3 months, it could take 6 months. But with nutrition, it's not ever a quick fix. It does take consistency, but it's possible. It's definitely
Yeah.
possible.
Do you believe in intermittent fasting for women or fasting for women? Because I've learned so much through, like, I recently did blood work, and I've learned so much about my body, and I've been given the recommendation to, like, because of the thyroid issue, to eat smaller meals and start with proteins and fats in the beginning of the day. And so if I do that, like, I can't fast until 12, because there will be times where I have fasted all the way up till 12 or 1 o'clock. Gaston does it and he feels great. Like, if we're having jet lag or anything, this guy will fast for like 24 hours and he'll feel fucking fabulous. But I'm like wondering and questioning, because like there's not enough research for women out there and our bodies.
At
Like,
all.
is fasting really good for us? I don't know.
So there is good research that does show. So it also depends what your goals are. And so I'm hesitant to say yes, good or bad, because it really depends person to person. And if you ever meet someone who says this one thing is good for everyone and everyone should do it, please be hesitant about that. Please be skeptical, because we are all so freaking different and we have different medical conditions and, like you said, hormone profiles and needs. So, for example, for you, I know you. You're a professional athlete. You're a go getter. You're working, you're doing finance. You are go, 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 go. And you're
Yeah.
training your ass off. Do I recommend that you intermittent fast? No, probably not, because you need to be fueling adequately for your training sessions. If
Yeah.
you're training in the morning, say 10 a.m., I don't want you fasting until 12, because you need to fuel that training session. If you don't, you are now putting your body in a state of stress, because again,
Yeah.
your body recognizes we are burning more than we're eating, and that's when your cortisol levels go up, that's when your hormones get imbalanced. Thyroid has a lot to do with stress in our body. So it really just depends on what your needs are, what your daily activity is. Men, fuckers, they go through their hormone cycle every 24 hours. So when they wake up in the morning, they feel great. They get this boost of cortisol and testosterone, and they're ready to take on the world. Most men, by like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they hit that wall, and then they'll like balance back out, come around like 4 or 5 o'clock. And they just do this every day. It's the same. For
Dude.
us, every week is different. Every week of the month is different. You know, one week I'm ready to run through a wall and take on everyone. The week before my period, I'm ready to jump off a building some days. And I'm like, my life is good. Why do I think it's ending right now? Why can't I stop crying? Why am I yelling at my dog for no reason? Like,
Right.
and then my period comes and I'm like, oh, that's right. And then I just
Oh,
want to like be in my pajamas and just not really like work out that hard at the gym.
yeah.
So it's just so variable, dude. We just got to
Yeah.
like tune into our bodies and meet it where it's at.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's really good. That's really good advice. So like a summary of like listen to your fucking body, number one, because it tells you things. And number two,
Yes.
like, yeah, like I just I think it's really crazy how we're so different from men. And so I mean, this show is all about that, really like kind of breaking barriers, being in male dominated industries. And like you are absolutely an epitome of that, being a male dominated industry. So it's got to be hard as a woman. Like I would consider you an alpha female, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think so.
and it's got to be really hard giving advice to men, especially fighters that like are tough people to begin with. But like, how do you deal with this like highly paced male driven industry that you've been in the past?
You know, Des, I would love to sit here and be like, you know what? It's always been a struggle and I really had to prove myself and I had to fight and I was oppressed. I I feel blessed. I don't know if maybe it was just my upbringing. I was always kind of a tomboy. I was a tomboy. I played all the
Scratch
sports.
that. I was a tomboy.
I was absolutely a tomboy. My awkward phase
Same.
lasted way longer than it should. I got robbed, okay? But I kind of found my place in sports and I always was trying to hang out with the boys and be one of the boys. Um, so I think that that played a big role. So like when I got into this space, it felt very natural for me to be in a male dominated space. It felt very comfortable for me. I would say that what was really important for me personally is that I was seen as, you know, not just like the blonde girl like in the room, and that I was, you know, smart and that I'm capable and that I'm a hard worker and I know what the F I'm talking about, right? So being able to convey that, but not in like a pushy know-it-all kind of way. So I know you were saying like how to like deal with like men and getting them to like listen to a girl, right? In this sport. I think the fact that I did fight Muay Thai and I have gone through my own weight cuts, I think that helped me out a lot because that alone, male or female, if you've had to cut weight, if you know what it is to go through a fight camp and to make it to your fight and knowing how broken down your body is and how mentally, like what a struggle that is mentally, if you can have that experience, male or female, like you're relatable to these fighters. So that helped me out a lot. And then also just keeping it very professional, you know, I worked really hard not to blur any of those lines. And when I was at work, I was at work and didn't matter how attractive I thought you were. Like you were never going to know I thought you were attractive. Yeah, I looked at
Right.
you like you're somebody who needs help. I equate it to my time when I worked in a hospital as a dietitian. Just it's all business and I'm here to make sure that you're safe, to make sure that you're healthy and make sure that you can perform at your best because I know your paycheck and your family depends on you being able to perform your best. And I just conveyed that. And I was really well received because of that. And also meeting people where they're at, you know, fighters are all different. They come from all different backgrounds. They come from different gyms. Their coaches have different methods and techniques, especially when it comes to weight cutting. It's very ritualistic. So
Yeah.
instead of me just coming in and going, you need to do ba 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 ba, and you need to do it this way because this is the best way. Absolutely not. I always started with, okay, tell me with what you're already doing. What works for you? What are you comfortable with? And then if unless something was absolutely outrageous and dangerous, I would take what they're doing and critique it just little bits to make it better, just optimize what they're already doing.
So you don't have to say any names or anything, but speaking of weight cuts, like what is the craziest fucking weight cut that you've ever seen? Like, I don't know, it could be like the method, the amount of weight, the time, the frame that they did it. Like, how the fuck did they do that? Like, I don't even know how that even happened. And then like won a fight. I don't know. Like, what is that?
Yeah. And no, I'm glad you put that out. I would never name names ever, 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 because obviously, one, privacy, and two, HIPAA. Uh, but
Gotta love
I gotta love HIPAA. So, it's funny. I didn't know that this was a thing until I got to the UFC. I will never forget it. It was my very first fight card. And when I came in, I was just like, I had been running weight cuts for people. I didn't realize how conservative I was. I did not bring in people super heavy to fight week. I was not having them sweat a bunch off. Like, I thought I was pushing lines. And then I got to the UFC and I went, oh, these guys are built different. And I got to see exactly what the human body is capable of. And at first was
Wow.
terrifying. But I remember this one guy, and they show up, and I'm sure as coming with guests on to check-ins, the first thing we do is we ask, like, okay, what's your weight today? How much water are you drinking? Here's your food. Do you have any questions for us? Yada, yada, yada. And this person comes in and he tells us his weight and he tells us how much water he's drinking. He walks away, and I'm like, this man's gonna die. It's like, what? Because a common practice in for fight week is something called water loading, where we
Yeah.
drink an excessive amount of water. And what this does, when you take salt away and you increase your water intake, it triggers a hormone in your body that will force your body to release more water, which is what we want during fight week. We want to pee a lot, we want to sweat a lot, we want that water to go. So that's the practice. I thought that's what everybody's doing. Then I heard something called a taper, and this person, instead of drinking an excessive amount of water, they were drinking a very small amount of water. And this was like a big
Oh,
person drinking a very small amount of water. And it's only Tuesday. We still got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday until
yeah.
weigh-ins. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this person's poor kidneys are going to dry up by tomorrow. Like, how are they going to
Right.
survive? And I was told, no, no, no. This is what he does. Like, they have their method. This is what they do. It works. They make weight every time. They'll be okay. You'll see. And sure as shit, this fucker, not only was he okay, I think he won his fight that week. And I was like, all right, now it's funny. You get to the highest level and you're like, yeah, I know a thing or two. And then you realize you know nothing. You know
Wow.
nothing. There was still so
Yeah.
much to learn. But yeah, that would probably
Damn.
be one of the craziest things, is when people,
You're
like,
like,
they're
you
not drinking very
literally.
much water.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's got to be crazy. You're like, wait a second, your body is not going to be able to go through this. Did they do like sauna and stuff too, or
Oh
bath,
yeah,
or?
I'm sure they did. I don't know. Everybody has their own method, whether it's bath or sauna, or some people just run it off. I've seen guys just on the treadmill for like 3 hours, just running it off. And it's impressive. So, but that person in particular, I don't know. I don't know. They like I said, they run their own thing. They're very private, very close niche with their team, and they just kind of stay off site and do their own thing. So I don't know what they're doing, but it's working for now.
That is fucking crazy, girl. I'm sure you have seen some serious shit. So, like, you guys, the UFC Performance Institute. I have gotten to go there a few times, and if you are someone that is in the tech space, or you've been to a Google or an Oracle of the world, or you've been to Facebook or seen what their campus looks like, the UFC Performance Institute is very similar, and it is amazing facility. Like, when you walk in the doors, they have everything from the food to the saunas to the cold plunges to all of the training stuff that you absolutely need. And it's an amazing facility, right? Like, they integrate a lot of stuff within there. So it's a pretty cool place to like work, and a pretty cool place to just like be and visit. I feel like they should do visits.
Yeah, I mean, they do tours. They do tours. So, like, if you know somebody there, you could definitely get a little bit of a tour and get walked around and shown everything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So one thing I always talk about, because like it's been really interesting over the last 9 years, like fighting and also like being an entrepreneur, running businesses and being a mom and all these things. And I interpret a lot of what happens in life to fighting. And I feel like you and I can both relate to this because you've also fought Muay Thai as well. And you know what it's like to be a fighter. But there's like so many lessons and so many things that we can attribute to real life. And so, you know, I love this beautiful connection between where business meets battle, essentially. And so, yeah, and it's really crazy. But I want to know, I mean, you fight every day for the things you believe in. You fight, you know, alongside fighters as they are going through their weight cuts. You know, what would be like the biggest thing that like gives you an edge? Like if someone is wanting to get into the nutrition space or become a dietitian, or specifically work for athletes, like where do they need to focus their energy? Where do they need to fight in order to be at the top like you have? Like, is it all a degree in the nutrition world? Like, is it?
Yeah, so as far as becoming a registered dietitian, so let me explain a little bit about that because there is a lot of misconception around the term nutritionist or registered dietitian. A lot of people think it's the same thing. It is not the same thing.
Same.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's not the same. Believe it or not, the term nutritionist is not regulated. So anybody who thinks that they know a thing or two can say, I'm a nutritionist. And there's no regulating body who's going to tell them they can't do that. So, but there's no education
Oh,
requirement. So they could literally just be like YouTube educated and call themselves a nutritionist, and there's nobody out there who's going to stop them. Or if they say,
wow.
yeah, I'm certified and blah, blah, I'm a certified nutritionist. Again, not a regulated industry. So anybody, you know, any Joe Schmo can be like, hey, take my little online class and you're going to get a certificate. There's nothing, it's nothing, like, essentially. And I'm not trying to take
Interesting.
away from people who are nutrition coaches and nutritionists. You know, I know there's a lot of good ones out there. I am, although I do have an extensive formal education, I also know that that is not a requirement to be intelligent and to know a thing or two about a thing or two, right? So I'm not trying to knock on people who are nutritionists and nutrition coaches. I think there's a lot of them who are doing a lot of good work out there. And I don't think anyone's in that space with ill intentions. However, when you're a registered dietitian, there are education requirements. As of right now, you need a bachelor's degree in dietetics and nutrition. You also need a master's degree. Then, once you
Wow.
complete that, you complete a dietetic internship, which is usually 8 months to a year of experience. You are working in a hospital, getting your clinical rotations. You're working in a food service situation, whether that's at the hospital or somewhere else. And then you also have to do a community rotation. For example, me, I did mine at a preschool. So there's requirements, and then once you finish all those hours, I think it's like 1,200 hours, 1,000 to 1,200 hours. Then once you pass all that, you're able to go sit for your 4 hour exam. The exam to become a registered dietitian is so hard, you only need a 50% to pass.
Wow.
You need a 25 out of 50 to pass. It's extremely difficult.
Wow,
So,
I had no idea. Girl, you're a fucking doctor. Like, fuck the
oh,
what are you saying right now? You've done your residency and shit. It's like a full on.
essentially, right? It's like a doctor of nutrition because we do have that capability, and the education to treat medical conditions. So there's a field of dietetics called medical nutrition therapy, MNT, and that's what you see in a
Okay.
hospital setting. So people who have kidney failure, they need to be on a very specific diet, like very
Yeah.
specific, otherwise they can die. Diabetics, they need to be on a very specific diet. A lot of times you're diabetic and you have kidney disease, and you need to know how to feed these people.
Wow.
There's people who get into car accidents and they're in a coma. They need to be fed through a tube. How do we decide what your needs are? How many calories do
Right.
you need? So a lot of, like, all of my
Cancer.
education and schooling, cancer, yes, oncology is a big one. That was one of my rotations as well in my clinical, and it's a huge one. It's a huge one. A lot of people have cancer. A lot of people have diabetes. Um, it's just, or pregnancy, like there's just so, it's like it's endless, Des. It's endless of like what we can do with nutrition to treat different medical ailments. Now,
Yeah.
our schooling is only focused on clinical community food service. My school didn't teach me anything about sports, anything about performance, and
Wow.
certainly not about weight cutting for combat sports. So when I was going to school, my full-time job was school, and I joked that my second full-time job was learning performance nutrition and studying that on my own. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light about the differences between a dietitian
Oh
and
my
somebody
God.
who's a nutritionist.
Yeah, no, because I clearly didn't recognize. Like, I would be offended if I were you if someone called me a nutritionist, which we can rewind that back and see if I
No,
called you a
it's
nutritionist.
okay. No, you
So
called
we're
me
gonna
a
take it
registered
back.
dietitian. You called me RDN. So
Okay,
before we're RDs, and now we're trying to take the term nutritionist. So a lot of it'll be RD or RDN. It's personal preference of what somebody wants to be called, but we have the option
got
to be
it.
both. But that's what the N stands for, is registered dietitian nutritionist, because we are trying to
Yeah.
take that back a little bit.
Well, yeah, no, I find that extremely helpful. Like, dude, I've been a professional athlete, I've been training for 9 years. And for me not to know the difference, I can imagine what the next woman knows or doesn't know, right? And so, like, in a world where we live today, like, the internet is great, social media is great. I can find coaching. You can find coaching anywhere today. I mean, we have our own coaching and fitness program called the Champions Blueprint, right? But there are a lot of people out there saying that they can help in these areas, and in a place, especially for women that have such complex bodies, you have to question like how good or how healthy, like, their processes might work for you, but is it like, how is it affecting your body long term? And
that that
that is the important part that I feel like we're missing. Like, this person can be great. And so when you guys are doing your research out there and when you're choosing the right person, nutritionist, someone to work with, dietitian, now I feel like you have a better sense of clarity of choosing and understanding, differentiating between the two.
Yes. And I want to touch on this too, because I run into this a lot. And with the Ozempic kind of wave that's going through right now, I've gotten very frustrated over the last few years of doctors and them not staying in their lane. Because in order to become a medical doctor, there is no requirement on nutrition at all. Most doctors get maybe 7 hours of nutrition training in their entire 4 years of medical school, and very little in their pre-med. So you've got these doctors who are throwing Ozempic at people, at young people, like in their early 20s, before there's any kind of a diet or lifestyle intervention. And they don't even have a general understanding of how that drug is going to affect them long term, or what it's going to do to their metabolism when they start taking this drug and they're not eating and they're starving themselves for months on end. Because that's what the drug does, right? It makes you nauseous, so you don't want to eat. And
Yeah.
like that conversation we went back to, if you're not eating a certain amount of calories a day, your metabolism gets slower and slower and slower. So the rebound of that is pretty significant. So
Oh,
I also just want to put that out there for women. And going to your doctor, again, doctors, I think they all have very good intentions, but I think that they're quick to speak on things that they're really not fully educated in, instead of referring to the proper professional.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, like it's like hard to know who you can trust today, because yeah, like you think that you can trust your doctor, but a lot of times doctors don't. They're just part of the whole system. You know what I'm saying? And that is the challenging thing, because they've all been pre-biased into this lane that they've been taught through their educational system, and not taught.
Pharmacology. As a,
Yeah,
as a
like
med
to.
school dropout, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And then I was like, oh, this is not how I want to help people. Like, I don't want to just write prescriptions for medications.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
pharma is scary. I might not say
for
that on there. I
sure.
might cut that out because I might get chopped on YouTube. I don't. I don't know. Yeah, but I'm learning like more and more every day. And like, guys, like, ladies, if you're watching, your body is going to change at 20, 25, 30, 35. I mean, there is there are significant changes. Like for one, acne. I never had acne my entire life, Dawn. I've had fucking face, and I don't know what happened, but like maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I just like started to break the fuck out, like bad breakout. And I don't know, and my hormones were just everywhere, right? Like I thought it was like maybe I'm not washing my face correctly because I'm training all of it. No, girl, it was the inside. It was
It's
the
an internal
inside.
state. Most skin conditions come from an internal state. And actually, if you want to have a side conversation, you and me, I can shed some light. I've had some similar issues that I was actually able to clear up.
Okay, love that. Love that. Guys, if you have the acne situation, you're 30 and up, okay, and it's happening
The
to you,
acne, the thyroid, the thinning hair, it's all connected.
yeah, it is really, really bizarre. I mean, I look back on some pictures and I was like, dude, my skin was so perfect. Like, I was literally breaking out all over my face. I mean, it is so demoralizing. And for ladies that are struggling out there, like, girl, I feel ya. But it does a lot to your confidence, to everything. Like, the shit is not good. Like, fuck comparing to another female. Like, I don't feel good in my own skin enough to even compare myself to anybody, Like, it's demoralizing. It's not good.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, in in a world like that's our face, right? That's like how we're presenting ourselves to the world. So if we're not feeling confident here, it hurts us here.
I know. All right, so let's get personal. I want to ask you some questions here
Sure.
about randomness. Okay, so my first question about is really more about spilling the tea. So, what is some like the craziest like the worst mean girl shit that you've seen at work? Like, I mean, you deal with fighters, so we're already aggressive in nature, but what is the fucking worst mean girl shit that you've seen in your entire career?
In my career, you mean like as a dietitian or just like as a person in general?
Yeah, like no, as a dietitian, probably working at the PI because you have girls that are fighting other females and like maybe they've run into each
Oh, like
other.
that.
Maybe yeah, like what or
Girl.
like let's just say someone switched their pizza with some fucked up shit.
You want to know something funny? I wish
Yeah.
I had mean girl stories for you. The men were worse than the women, okay? Okay, I again, like I feel so blessed that a lot of the situations I saw with the women within the I personally never saw anything crazy like nasty, catty towards each other. The men, absolutely. But the women, I've actually seen times where there's like a girl in the locker room and she's like in the middle of her weight cut. It's Friday morning. She's really struggling. And like another girl who's not cutting weight, not even on the same fight card, strolls in, sees her struggling, and came over to like help her and like brought her a towel for under her head. And it was just like women supporting women.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
I wish I had something juicy for you as far as that, but like I've been
Yeah.
blessed to see like a lot of them really supporting each other for sure
Yeah. That's
at the
amazing.
PI.
And
I have mean
yeah.
girl stories outside of the PI in previous jobs that I've had, but as far as the PI goes, that's yeah.
Yeah, I find it like this is why I always suggest fighting for women because your focus is redirected to doing hard things that put you in vulnerable places, right? Like when you're going through a weight cut, whether it's a man or a woman, you are seeing somebody at their absolute worst, at that moment where like you can give up. Like I don't know if any of you guys do sauna, but like if you sit in a sauna for 20 or 30 minutes, there's going to come a point in time that you want to run out of there, that no longer feels good for you. And if you are like someone like a professional fighter, you can't just get up and leave out of that sauna. Like you have to talk to yourself and talk to yourself to even like I have to stay in here because my job is dependent on that. Like it's such a like it is such an amazing sport to be in because even I would even say relationship building, because how do we build relationships? Being vulnerable, right? Being relatable.
And that forces you into a situation to be vulnerable. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can't put on a mask. You can't put on, it's like literally you see a person for what they really are. Like they could be the best knockout out artist. They could be like the toughest person on the outside, like the grungiest, but like the moment they get into the situations that you have seen, you really see people for who they are, you know?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Pain and suffering does wonders for somebody's character. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll show you their true colors for sure, and we'll show you who they are. You asked me a question earlier about anybody who is looking to get into the space of dietetics and nutrition and like a performance and like a performance world. And I think your question was like, what do I say? Like, as far as like making it to the top and like what sets you apart from the rest? Compassion, compassion and empathy, even in a male dominated, especially in a male dominated space, because these men
Mm.
are around other men. And there's this idea that we have to be tough and we, like just pat you on the back. You're okay. You know what I mean? And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the feedback from these men. Some of them I was close with already. Some I didn't know from Adam. I just saw that they were struggling and I just put myself in there and I sat with them and I was just reassuring them, putting ice on their neck, giving them that like little bit of like compassionate, tender love, right? That like that nurturing
Hmm.
care. And that they've come back and told me, like, you saved my life. I was this close from bolting out of that sauna, from wanting to give up. I didn't think I was going to make it. And there were times where it felt really dark and I just found myself looking around the room for you and just seeing you brought me comfort. So I would say, especially in the world of sports where people are just so motivated to be tough and suck it up and, be a man and don't be a bitch about things, being able to bring a softness to that situation allows people to feel comfortable being vulnerable. I feel like that is more valuable than your education at sometimes, than how much you know, how smart you are. Like, you don't need to inject, like, force it down somebody's throat that you're smart, you know what you're talking about. People are going to be way more receptive to you if they feel comfortable with you, if they feel safe with you. And
Yeah.
if they can tell that you have their best interest in mind. I think that being genuine and authentic goes a long way in this field.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the other part of it too is like, I think that's why more and more like companies are hiring women for bigger roles, right? Because we understand compassion a lot more and we understand how to be nurturers. And in any job, in any given job, whether you're a corporate, whether you're a fighter, whether any of these things, like if you're in the people business, you have to learn
Mm,
how to work with
yes.
people, you know?
Yes. And connect.
Um,
Connect with people, not just like work and exist, but connect.
yeah. So the moral of the story, ladies, lock your man in the sauna, see how long he lasts, and then from there determine whether or not you want to marry that guy.
That's hysterical. Can you imagine if that was like part of the application process? Like, here, I'm going to take your water away from you and we're going to shave about 10, 15 pounds of water off of you and see what happens.
Listen, I know it's the craziest thing, but like my dad told me growing up, never marry a man that can't do drywall better than you. And ladies, when I tell you I can fucking do drywall, I can do a lot of shit. Yesterday we
Me
set up our
too.
cold. Yeah, we set up our cold plunge, baby. I hid the wires behind the, in the patio. I covered it with tam bark. I rolled up. I mean, I did all ton of shit. And I'm saying it, like, some of these rules to live by are like legitimate things, okay? So number one, the drywall. Number two, can he be in the sauna for more than 10, 15 minutes without bitching out on you? I'm adding that to the list of qualifications. Yeah, because I've seen Gaston and I'm like, man, we started talking about like, hey, I really love doing hard shit with you. Like we always talk about, hey, we do hard shit and we do hard shit really well. Sometimes we don't, we do the easy stuff terrible, like terrible. But when it comes to like the problem solving or an emergency or putting out a fire, like we do those things really well. And again, like relating it back to fighting, like doing hard stuff is going to make you better, and in life we deal with hard stuff. And if like you don't have a partner that can like do hard things with you, like, and that just like gives up, oh, that's tough,
For sure. And it's funny, my mom always said, you don't get married until you travel with them and or live with them. Like those two things will tell you a lot about a person, especially the travel, right? Because if things start to go wrong, if your plane gets delayed, if there's a long line and you're tired and you're hungry and you're grouchy, you're going to see a side of them that they're not able to fake anymore because they're not feeling so good, they're not at their
Under
best, so that's
stress.
when you're really going to see under stress. Exactly. So pay attention to that. Like if
Yeah.
you realize that you've got your man, you love him and everything's, rainbows and sunshine, but you guys really haven't gone through anything stressful yet. Not saying go start some drama. Yeah, don't go causing some stress because that's a different situation.
You're
But
like,
just pay attention.
what
Yeah.
can I do to stress him out so I can see his stress response?
Yeah. No,
I
no, no, no. We're not trying to make synthetic stress. Okay.
I fucking love it. I love it. Hey, I don't know. These days, shit's crazy, y'all. It's crazy out here in the dating scene. So, Gaston and I have known each other for like 9 years, and yeah, a long time. And we've seen each other through like the highs, the lows, breakups, relationships, both of us doing fucked up shit, okay? And and we talk about it all the time. We're like, man, that was such a piece of shit when I did that. Like it's different when you built this relationship with someone over a long period of time. You see them for who they are, and like
And all the different
that's
versions of each other, right?
yeah, but yeah, like the weight cut thing is a different game. Like I've seen him go through. I mean, you were there for that one weight cut that was really stressful and a lot. But yeah, you get to see the rawness of the individual that you're sharing your life with. But man, so you've seen a lot of motherfuckers give up in there. Have you seen a lot of people give up in there or what?
Not on my watch. Not on my watch. So
Like your ass is staying in
I
that sauna.
I had a bit of a reputation. So as much as I can bring the compassion and the empathy, I was not beyond being the drill sergeant when I had to be.
Yeah.
Your body and your mind are in a very compromised state when you're extremely dehydrated and you're adding the heat to the situation and the stress of it. Like we are not ourselves. Anxiety sets in, the brain is trying to just go into survival mode, and you're fighting your own demons. And if you're not mentally strong and you don't recognize what's happening, then you could honestly think that you're dying and that you need to back away because it's your survival mechanism, right? So having a good team around you helps. But no, there were a couple times where this one particular situation that keeps ringing in my head. And it wasn't my athlete. It was not somebody I was working closely with. I was working with somebody else actually in the same room. And I'm listening, I can hear that his team is like trying to get him to go back in the sauna. And this dude's just chilling. He's just sitting outside the door like he's got all the time in the world and just ignoring everyone around him trying to get in there. And they're all being like, come on, man, like you gotta go in like real weak, right? And finally I turn around, I'm like, yo, get the fuck in the sauna. I was like, you got 28 minutes, bro. You do not have time. Get in the sauna. And he was just like, oh, and he got up and he got in the sauna. And I was like, Jesus. And his coach was just like, yo, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know, man. And then fast forward like an hour later, we're at the weigh-ins and I see this dude and he's all happy because he's on weight and he's getting ready to go make his walk. And he sees me and he stops and he gets right up on me. And I'm just like, oh boy, here we go. Like I'm expecting him to cuss me out, tell me what a bitch I was, like something, right? And this dude goes, you're a drill sergeant. And I like that. No, he called me a general. He goes, you're a general. And he put his hand out. He shook my hand. He goes, thank you. I needed that. You saved my ass in there. And then he hugged me. He's like, all right. And he just turned around and walked away. And I was like,
dude,
wild.
that's fucking awesome. Yeah, no, that's fucking awesome. Yeah, sometimes you gotta bite down your fucking mouthpiece, dude. Sometimes you gotta bite down on your mouthpiece and fucking go for it. And some people, like, they need to hear that. Like, dude, my dad one time, he's dealt with a ton of health issues. And, like, everybody around, he's gotten manic at times. And, like, my stepmom and, like, some people, they're like, Sarah, and I'm like, stop fucking doing that right now. Like, my dad was a Marine. So, like, he put that in me, too. Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, cut the shit right now. Like, I'm like,
Yes, direct. Some people respond really well to just being assertive and direct, and that's what they need. So,
yeah.
knowing, being able to be a little bit of everything, ladies, like you got to read the room. You got to know your audience and try to feel that out. You can't. There's not just one approach.
Yeah, yeah. So my last question I'm going to ask you, which is like kind of around a saying that I love, which is fight like a girl.
Yes.
And I honestly feel like right now, like this is such a great question for you maybe right now, because I want to ask like, where in your career, like, have you had to like fight like a girl? Like you're on this new journey now of entrepreneurship. Like where the fucker is Dawn fighting right now?
That's it. The whole entrepreneurship journey, right? And just going out on my own and starting a business and like from scratch, right? I've worked with private clients before, but now I need to move into this new space of social media and LLC and just getting my ducks in a row and learning the technology that's going to help me with my business and be organized and figure out pricing and all these things that you just don't think about when you're working for a company or when you have other people around you that you're working for someone else, right? There's just things you don't have to think about. And as far as like fighting like a girl in this space, biggest battle for me, making sure that I know my worth and I know my value and I'm pricing accordingly. And I recognize that my time is valuable, my knowledge is valuable, and that I also am bringing something to the table that my male counterparts can't. I'm bringing a compassion, an understanding, a nurturing side, and that's not a weakness, and that I shouldn't be suppressing that just to fit into this mold in this space of these men who are already doing what I want to do, and like making sure that I remember that and I stay in touch with that and recognizing that that's actually a superpower and not going to be a detriment to me. I would
Yeah.
say leaning into that, like as much of an alpha male as I am, or alpha female, I should say, as much of an alpha female, alpha male, Freudian slip, right?
You're thinking teen alpha male.
Yeah, right. No, so like being as much of an alpha female as I am, it's also being able to recognize that there's duality and there's balance, and that it's okay to lean into my feminine side, and that it's not gonna make me less than, it's not gonna make me unsuccessful. If anything, I think it's gonna make me more successful in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, you have something a lot of people wish they had, which is the time and the experience, right? Like, this is the same thing I hear across all my conversations with successful women. I interviewed my girlfriend Bree just earlier today, and the same thing. She was in her line of work for 10, 13 years, and she had this beautiful foundation that when it was her moment to change lanes into the entrepreneurial side of things, she knew exactly what she was doing. She knew every piece of the puzzle that she needed to put together in order to skyrocket. And that took a little time to like set everything up. But once she got there and then got some mentorship, like the girl and her husband have taken off on. And so you have that piece that a lot of people wish they have. You've had the experience, and now you can take that into your new journey. And like, I'll be so excited to like talk a year from now and see where you are from where we are here. And
Yes.
I'm like so thankful that I get to talk to you in this like crossroad that you're in.
Me too.
So
What a great timing, right? Like when you reached out to me, I was like, yo, I don't even know if she knows I just left the UFC a few days ago.
no,
So
I
this is gonna
got
be
you,
crazy.
girl. Yeah, you're on this beautiful new journey. So I'm really excited for you. You're a go-getter, a powerhouse. And I hope like all of our audience have learned a lot. I've learned a lot on this Zoom with you. So like, yeah, where can we find you? Give us your socials, how to reach
Yeah.
out to you. If people want to talk about their diet, anything, where do we find you?
Absolutely. One of the most common ways some people can reach out to me is on Instagram. It's DK underscore dietitian. Shoot me a DM. I'm very responsive. It doesn't matter if you're looking to get into the nutrition world and you have questions on the path and how to do that. If you're a fighter, if you're a woman looking to lose weight for a wedding, whatever it is, shoot me a message. And if it's not something that I really do or can help you with, I promise I'd probably know somebody who can help you. And I'm happy to make that connection.
That's amazing. Well, I learned so much. And the moral of this story today, you guys, is please, please take the time to look at your nutrition, spend the dollars to invest in your health, figure out a plan that works for you specifically, because it is not the same. And we are trying to save you ladies out there from a world of headache with your hormones and potential things that you may not be able to reverse as you get older. So hopefully this was informative. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and follow us here on Unconventional and our socials below. Thanks so much, Dawn, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.